What's up, guys? Also Football Talk here. Holy effing crap. What did we just witness? That was the greatest weekend of football in my life from a pure entertainment perspective, and I'm just not sure if we can all yet comprehend what actually happened. All four games decided on the last play, 3 game-winning field goal by the road team, and then the Chiefs taking the ball down the field in overtime to end the madness that was going on in Kansas City. We'll go through that, just talk a little bit about the overtime rules when we get there, recap all the games, and then preview what's ahead in Championship Sunday, where we get a rematch of the Week 16 shootout between the Bengals and the Chiefs, and then 49ers vs. Rams Part 3. There's no way I can cover all the details of these incredible matchups from this past weekend, but I'll try to give a comprehensive look and my opinions on them. So first up, we had the Cincinnati Bengals going to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. I'll put the stats on the screen here right now for all of these. Thank you, ESPN. I hope I don't get any copyright issues. And this was a bit of a funny one, because I didn't feel like it was just a 3-point win for Cincinnati, but as we approached the end of the game, I also kind of thought the Titans would win. So what happened? First snap from scrimmage, Tennessee tries to get the defense to trigger down against Derrick Henry in his return and hit an intermediate throw of play action, but Jesse Bates does a great job of driving on it from depth and picking off the pass. Bengals have to settle for a field goal, however, and that was kind of the theme for them early on, as the Bengals got inside the Tennessee 33 times, but only came away with 9 points, as the Titans pushed them back with sacks on all of them. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's nose tackle DJ Reader was just dominating the interior of the line, constantly beating the center across his face on the front side of zone run plays, and never allowed Derrick Henry to build up any momentum. However, they did hit one big play to AJ Brown on a deep corner out of play action to set up a Henry touchdown, and it was followed by a pivotal play that most people seem to forget or just act like the 1 point didn't make a difference. But that's simply not understanding how this thing works, because after a flag on Cincinnati, the Titans decided to go for 2 and didn't convert, which never put them in the lead and influenced some of the decision making down the stretch, I'm sure. The Bengals put up the most impressive drive at the start of the second half, marching down the field before Joe Mixon hit a nice cutback for a 16-yard score. The home team was about to answer after a long run from Deontay Foreman, but Mike Hilton came off the edge and tipped an intended screen to himself for the interception. So with how things went up to that point, it really felt like Cincinnati was now in control, yet after going 3 and out, everything seemed to go the Titans' way, hitting 2 more big plays to AJ, once on a ball that seemed to hang up in the air for forever, and he high-pointed it in the middle of the field, and then one-handing a ball to his back shoulder in the end zone. Every Bengals drive ended in a sack or once at an incredible Amani Hooker interception, where the ball did touch the ground, but it also didn't really move, as the ball went off Samaje Perine hands in the flats. So now with the ball back in Ryan Tannehill's hands, with just under 3 minutes left and a tight score, this felt like another game that the Titans had somehow turned around, until Tannehill tried to fit a ball into traffic over the middle, it got popped up, and linebacker Logan Wilson came up with it, and one easy pitch and catch from Burrow to Chase on a 7 route later, rookie kicker Evan McPherson banged in a 52-yarder, going a perfect 4-for-4 on the day. That guy really had ice in his veins. I don't remember the last time I saw a quarterback get sacked 9 times and his team still won. Jeffrey Simmons was a monster on the interior, racking up 3 of those sacks. Harold Landry beat the right tackle Isaiah Prince in all kinds of ways, and Burrow often had to form a ball back there. Still, he made the plays when needed, while Tannehill certainly wasn't at fault for all 3 of his picks, but when the Bengals did put the game on his shoulders by stuffing the run for the most part, he couldn't really deliver. AJ Brown going for 142 yards and 5 grabs should not be forgotten, however, here either. And then on Sunday night, we got the NFC's number 1 seed in the Packers hosting the 49ers. And this one is much harder to comprehend exactly how the winner was determined, because early on it felt like the Packers were in a different class. First drive of the game, they go right down the field. Davante Adams looks First drive of the day, they go right down the field. Davante Adams looks uncoverable before AJ Dillon punches in a touchdown from 6 yards away. First drive of the game, they go right down the field. Davante Adams looks uncoverable before AJ Dillon punches in a touchdown from 6 yards away. 49ers go 3 and out, with Zadarius Smith making his presence felt in his return with a big sack. Green Bay already back in opposing territory 3 snaps later, before Fred Warner punches the ball out of the hands of Mercedes Lewis. They pick it up, and the Packers offense never got back into a rhythm. Funnily enough, Jimmy G actually delivered on target early on, and it was his receivers not coming through for a change, including George Kittle dropping a routine catch down the seams, where he might have gone all the way if he hauls that one in. The Niners did finally put together a good drive before the half ended, and had a chance to tie, as Jimmy's forced to move around, and has Kittle wide open running to the corner of the end zone, but Garoppolo takes too long, horribly underthrows it, and Adrian Amos picks it off. Now it seems like Green Bay's content with a 7-0 advantage going into the break. Still on third down, Rodgers escapes to the right and finds a wide open Aaron Jones, who got completely lost on the wheel route of a mesh concept. Jones has to slow down a little bit because I think Rodgers tried to be safer with the throw, but then he and safety Jaquiski Tartt at dead even with a good 10 yards between them horizontally. Jones doesn't quite trust his speed, tries to cut it back momentarily, and he gets chased down inside the San Francisco 15. Nick Bosa sacks Rodgers, and they have to settle for a field goal, only this one is blocked, and they actually get away with no points there. Both teams were able to put together field goal drives in the second half, and even though the Niners did get a little bit going, a fourth down stop by the Packers D, Rashan Gary getting into the action, as he did all game long, gave the Packers the ball back, still up 10-3, until the play of the game. Rodgers just took a sack by Eric Armstead, and now inside their own 5, Jordan Willis goes right through his blocker, extends that long arm of his, and knocks a punt right up in the air, to where it seemed like everybody was trying to find it up there for like 5 seconds, until Noah Hufanga finally does, and takes it in for a touchdown for San Francisco. So now with the score tied at 10, Rodgers has a chance to lead his group down the field for a game-winning kick, but then he made his one big mistake of the day, because on third down, he threw it to Devontae Adams to the backside, kind of forced it there, even though San Francisco rotated into cover 3 and had the middle safety bracket him down the post, while Allen Lazard was wide open over the middle of the field, off his scissors concept the other way. And as good as the Packers D was all game, when they faced 3rd and 7 from the edge of field goal range, they slanted away from the playside gap and left a gaping hole for Deebo Samuel to pick up a good 10 yards on, and set up Robbie Gould for a 45-yarder, who remains perfect on kicks in the playoffs. So I get it, Rodgers could have absolutely played better, and they should have put the game out of reach, but I think the Niners barely getting anything done on offense, there is something to be said about managing a game, not putting the ball in harm's way outside of this last throw, especially considering Niners defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans threw the kitchen sink at him with all the different disguises and late rotations to create an unclear picture, and their rush got home before they could decipher it, which is rare for A-Rod. I believe if they don't have that fumble in the second possession, this isn't even close. The offense was rolling early on, when they were able to stay on schedule, and then the bubble just burst. I mean, outside of Adams and Jones, the rest of the unit combined for just 6 receiving yards, and they lost the game in which the opposing quarterback threw for just 131 yards, that pick in the red zone and no touchdowns. That was another special teams disaster, similar to the 2014 NFC title game against the Seahawks. We had a direct 10-point swing, and even in the last field goal attempt, they had only 10 men on the field. So this is one more blunder on Rodgers' resume, but I simply can't put a ton of blame on him, when if they just get their kicks off cleanly, this isn't even talked about. I think he's gone, and I hope as the league MVP, he can take another team to the promised land that doesn't put stones in his path. But now let's move on to Sunday, which offered even better games. First on the NFC side, with the Rams and the Bucs. And I know the Bengals were up by 10 at one point in Tennessee, but that was the biggest margin of any team had in their opponents outside of this game, where the Rams nearly got a chance to turn a 28-3 joke into a 27-3 variation. I mean, the Rams were rolling in the first half. Matt Stafford was on fire as they scored on all 3 of the opening possessions, including a 70-yard bomb on 3rd and 20 from Stafford to Kupp, which I broke down on my social media channels among others, which I would highly advise you to check out if you're interested. Both teams added another field goal to make the score 20-3 before Brady put too much air on the ball on a corner route to Gronk and allowed backup safety Nick Scott to undercut it in a 2-high shell to set up the opportunity to deliver the dagger. And Scott actually played an awesome game, not missing a single defensive snap for them. However, Antoine Winfield gets kind of run over by Cam Akers, only to wrestle the ball away from him at the Tampa Bay 1, and we go to halftime only with a 17-point difference. Coming out of the break, LA pins the home team inside their own 5. They get a great punt return from Brandon Powell and turn it into 6 on a Stafford sneak to make the score 27-3. What would follow was a near meltdown of epic proportions, as over the next 6 LA possessions, they fumbled the ball 3 times in a matter of 3 plays or less, including a snap right by Stafford's head that he wasn't ready for. They'd go 3 and out twice, and then that Pro Bowl kicker Matt Gay, who missed just 2 field goals all year long, comes up short on a 47-yarder, to the point where Von Miller's strip sack actually ended up in a field position advantage for the Bucs. Meanwhile, Brady chips away with some short completions to set up a couple of Leonard Fournette touchdowns, and Mike Evans beats Jalen Ramsey for a 55-yard score on a fade route to tie the game at 27. Ball back in the Rams' hands with 42 seconds and 1 timeout left. Stafford is sacked and nearly gives the ball up again but they don't just let the clock run down, they take the timeout. Stafford hits Cup on a little out route, and then Todd Bowles can't help himself. He goes blitz 0, and Stafford puts it out there in front for Cup again, right down the seam against the safety, 30-yard field goal, and the Rams escape. This had the chance to be another one in the record books for Brady, and everybody would have hated on Stafford again. Instead, he delivered in the biggest moment when all the momentum was on Tampa Bay's side. I know he hasn't won a lot in his career because he was in Detroit, and he has been forced to put his foot on the pedal a little bit more because his teams weren't that good. But this is one of the most clutch, tough quarterbacks that I've ever watched. Cup, of course, had a monster game. OBJ came up with several key catches. They couldn't really run the ball at any point, but Joseph Noteboom filled in admirably at left tackle for Andrew Whitworth. The defensive line was around Brady's legs all day, and they got key contributions from not so noticeable names. I think the better team clearly won here, and now we get to see the 49ers Rams for a third time, so McVay and company will have to overcome some demons if they want to get that home Super Bowl. Which brings us to the final game of the weekend, and if you thought the prior three were crazy, this will knock your damn socks off. Bills at Chiefs, final score 42-36. So if by any chance you didn't see this game, please just watch it. There is no way I can put everything that happened into words. I'll just talk about some key figures and then want to dedicate a little bit of time to talk about the overtime rules, because we saw 78 points and 25 of those came in the final 2 minutes of regulation alone. After opening touchdown drives by both sides, on which both quarterbacks' legs became a huge factor, it actually took until a 2-minute warning of the first half to see the next points being scored, as both quarterbacks were forced to go underneath quite a bit, and while Kansas City found some success with the late handoffs and counters, Josh Allen remained the preferred option for Buffalo on the ground, to where they actually ran sweeps around the edge in some key third and medium situations with him. Still, both sides were able to add another touchdown inside the final 2 minutes to make the score 14 each at the break. Kansas City would possess the ball 11 of the first 13 minutes in half number 2, hitting a field goal and then having Mecole Hardman find a lane on jet sweep before stretching out for the pylon. Josh Allen answered, however, with a 75-yard bomb off play action to Gabriel Davis for a one-play touchdown drive. That was followed up by a relatively quiet 15 minutes, which only included a Harrison Butker field goal to put them up by 5, before Josh Allen put together a brilliant drive, which was finished off by a 27-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis again on a 4th and 13, plus then he hit the 2-point conversion, where Allen ran around like a maniac, and then it's Stephon Diggs and the backline of the end zone to put them up by a field goal. Kansas City now right after the 2-minute warning, just looking for the equalizer. Mahomes hits Tyreek Hill over the middle, who outraces everybody across the field and scores from 64 yards out. Allen goes boom, boom, boom. Davis again beats the backup corner on a beautifully run post route with a nod to the corner for a 19-yard score. 13 seconds left now. The Bills kick it through the end zone, which was a mistake, because if they squib that kick, there's maximum 1 play left. But instead they get an easy 20 to Tyreek on kind of a shield screen, and then from near midfield, they allow Travis Kelce to release freely as the single receiver in a reduced split. He widens the corner for a moment, and then has easy access on the inside to set up a 49-yard kick to send us to overtime. Chiefs win the coin toss, go right down the field. Kelce beats Matt Milano to the pylon on a little out and up, and the Bills never see the ball. This was an absolutely phenomenal game, the best performance from opposing quarterbacks that I've ever seen, constantly extending plays and making stuff happen, and I will never forget it. And yeah, there's a bit of a sour taste in most people's mouths. Just quickly before that, unreal performance by Gabe Davis as the first player in NFL history to score 4 receiving touchdowns in a game on a day where Stephon Diggs was very quiet, oftentimes bracketed, other than body slamming a fan that ran onto the field. And credit Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy for hitting a few key runs, even with how hot the quarterback was. Now, regarding the overtime rules, I was shocked again to see how many people are still out there that think it should stay the same. The Bills' number 1 defense could or should have made a stop, and it's not just about quarterbacks and offense, I get that, but in a league where all the rules are being emphasized to favor the offense and scoring is at an all-time high, shouldn't we continue to progress in all areas? If it's really a team game, shouldn't the other defense have a chance to show how good they really are as well? I get that we want to protect players from injury, but didn't we just add an extra game? And didn't we go from a true sudden death to this current version just a couple of years ago as well? Just look at the numbers. Under the current rules, 90% of teams that have won the coin toss have also won the game, and 70% of those did it on the initial possession. That doesn't scream balance to me. So my suggestion, and I really believe that this is the best possible version, both teams get to possess the ball no matter what. If neither team scores or they both hit a field goal, it goes to sudden death, as always. If both score a touchdown, the second team now has to go for 2. The first team would be kind of crazy to not kick the PAT, because if they fail to convert to, the other squad now has a 90+% chance to win it that way if they get into the end zone. And even if both score the same, we get at most 3 possessions. We don't extend the game too much, and the teams have pretty much the exact same chance to win, considering 2-pointers are converted about half as regularly as PATs are knocked in. And if you like my suggestion or solution, please make sure to head over to my Twitter account, linked in the bio, and retweet the pinned post. Alright, that was a lot. Now let's get to the final 4. First up with the AFC, where we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. KC favored by 7, over and set at 54.5. We just saw this matchup about a month ago in Cincinnati, when the Chiefs looked like they would roll them early on, up 14-0 towards the end of the first quarter, until Joe Burrow hit Jamar Chase on a deep stop route, and surrounded by half the defense, he turned on the Jets and took it 72 yards for the touchdown. KC was up 28-17 at halftime, but they were held to just a field goal in the second half, while Burrow really heated up, and then there was this interesting back and forth at the end, where the Bengals kind of tried to run down clock without actually getting into the end zone, but then they went for it in 4th and goal, only for a couple of flags to save them, and set up a chip shot field goal for the win. In that game, we had just under 900 yards of total offense. Kansas City actually outgained the Bengals by 95 yards on the ground, and Mahomes was not sacked once. But Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo dared Cincinnati to challenge the press man coverage, and they have the types of freaks to win these matchups consistently. Chase set a rookie receiving record with 266 yards on the day, Burrow had 13 completions of 10 plus yards, and the Chiefs missed 10 tackles on the day. Mecole Hardman actually led the way with 53 receiving yards for the Chiefs, while Hill and Kelsey combined for just 65 on 17 targets, with the Bengals showing a lot of too high shells and Mahomes having to go underneath. There were lessons to be learned for both coaching staffs, but in particular on Kansas City's side, where they'll have to throw in some change-ups once the Bengals D starts striking down against shallow crosses and all stuff like that, while defensively they have to pick their spots with playing true man coverage. I know that the Bengals won last week despite taking 9 sacks, but if they can't stay ahead of the chains and get into 3rd and long routinely, that won't usually work out for them, especially considering their quarterback and those weapons on the other side that will definitely put up points. Chris Jones against those guards for Cincinnati is the single biggest mismatch in this contest, and Spags I'm sure will be more deceptive with pre versus post snap looks. They need to keep Joe Mixon a factor and then take their shots when those one-on-one matchups on the outside are presented to them. As we flip things around, Patrick Mahomes is in sync with this offense as much as he's been all season, where it's more about staying within the structure and then Mahomes sprinkling his magic over it. The Bills tried a very similar approach defensively in coverage, as you see the Bengals want to do with a lot of 2 high shells, alongside 2 man and 1 robber, which the Chiefs showed their best version of this underneath passing game that they morphed into all season long as we watched opposing teams try to follow their blueprint. Both groups need their instinctive Pro Bowl safeties, Jesse Bates and Tyrann Mathieu, to anticipate a few routes and separate guys from the ball or set a key tackle, assuming the latter one will be ready to go, because I believe if the defensive coordinators opt for a more conservative approach and limit chunk plays early on, finding favorable looks in the run game and yards after the catch will be crucial. Burrow is so good at staying in rhythm, and even when the O-line looks more like a giant turnstile for the pass rush, he can get the ball down the field as he hits that back foot on a 7-step drop. When I look at Denver, giving Kansas City some issues this year, for example, rushing for nearly 350 yards combined in the 2 matchups, something that stood out was the heavy usage of 12 personnel. That was kind of the Bengals offense early in the season, and I know how much of a level they've been since opening up the offense over the last 2 months. But with their poor pass blocking and the master at throwing looks at you that are tough to decipher on the other side, I don't believe it's realistic that they will win if this turned into a true drop-back game. So forcing the Chiefs to stay in base personnel more so, and slowing down the pass rush with play action, and just some of the formation that they can present, might be the way to go here. I think they certainly have a chance to win this game, but after what I saw last week, I just can't go against the Chiefs. Give me Kansas City 30-23. They're at home, they're more experienced in the situation, and I trust their coaching staff more. Buffalo to me was a slightly better team, their quarterback played a nearly perfect game, and they still lost. The 2 things that will concern me: Joe Burrow just doesn't give a damn, and there's a small chance for a letdown spot here after that wild back and forth between the Bills and the Chiefs. And then over in the NFC, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams, home team favored by 3.5, total set at 46.5 points. Right off the bat, let's just state the obvious here. The Niners have now won 6 straight in the series over the last 3 years. This season we saw them steamroll the Rams defense in the 31-10 domination, and then he only sneaked into the playoffs thanks to an awesome Week 18 comeback, where really Jimmy G delivered when needed most, and he ultimately won in overtime. In that first matchup, and of course game script plays a huge role in this, San Francisco ran the ball right at 70% of offensive snaps, and they still averaged 5.3 yards per play. Meanwhile, the defense forced 2 interceptions of Stafford, and he held LA to just 3 of 12 on 3rd and 4th downs combined, which started a bad stretch for LA, and the Niners' upswing began as well. Then in the regular season finale, the Rams were all over them in the first half, getting out to a 17-0 lead and picking up Jimmy G shortly before the break. However, when San Francisco was able to hit a couple of strikes to Brandon Ayuk and still put a field goal on the board with no time left, things started to turn around a little bit, and they really dominated the second half. And even when Stafford found Kupp for a big touchdown just before the 2-minute warning, Garoppolo answered before driving them down for a field goal in overtime, and then the rookie cornerback Ambry Thomas picked up a deep ball to seal it. And that was also the first time Sean McVay has lost a game as a head coach after leading at halftime, while San Francisco had 3 different receivers with over 90 yards on the day. The first thing that jumps out as I go through the numbers, the Rams ran the ball a total of 39 times for just 116 yards through the 2 meetings, and the Bucs have a special run-stopping unit, but 73 yards on the ground over 30 attempts when they were up by 3 possessions for the better part of that day, that isn't good enough. With the speed San Francisco has at linebacker and the physical that DBs are at setting the edge, they just can't try to go sideways against those guys, but rather want to see some traps and power to go right at them, because the Niners have a really smart safety tandem that won't allow the quarterback to move them off the landmarks with body language as effectively as Stafford did against the Bucs a few times. And if they don't have any balance to where those second-level defenders can take the first step backwards, it'll be really hard to fit in balls into those tight windows in zone coverage. When they get to 3rd and 5 or less, that's when they could see some man looks, where now they can work Kupp on option routes, or OBJ can gain some separation as defender on crossers. If it's long yardage, Nick Bosa in that front 4 for San Francisco is a nightmare to block right now, and they force the quarterback to hold onto the ball with the stuff that they do on the back end. The issues have come when teams did find ways to isolate those corners and attack one-on-one coverage. On the other side, the Niners offense is of course somewhat limited by the quarterback play, and if they want to win this game, we need to see a steady diet of Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel attacking the edges on true toss plays, with integrated cutback opportunities when they kick out the backside, and then that newest wrinkle, using left tackle Trent Williams as an eligible and turning him into a bulldozer when getting on the move as a puller. Because those 2 ball carriers have that slashing style and good vision, so they can create a lot of issues against a team built to stop the pass, heavily relying on the D-line to defeat blocks, and with an inexperienced linebacker group whose heads might be spinning on Sunday. Plus then they can hit you with all kinds of crossers or change-ups off that in the play-action game, like drag it up or corner post routes, if the defense gets too aggressive with trying to make up for having the eyes in the backfield initially. However, when they do get into obvious passing situations, there's some predetermination to Jimmy G's game, where he throws the ball blindly over the middle at times, as well as that right side of the offensive line can be exposed when they can slide that way. These were 2 of the top 3 offenses in yards per play through the regular season, and they have somewhat similarly built defenses that have relied on the safeties to be aggressive and smart, with a lot of different coverage variations, while each side has a head coach who calls the plays on offense and is smart enough to stay a step ahead of the competition usually. So from a coaching perspective, between Shannon and Ryans versus McVay and Raheem Morris, it's a very balanced matchup I would say, and I'm already pumped up to dive into the All-22 once that's available. This is a tougher one to call for me, because the Niners have had the division rivals' numbers recently, and in terms of overall talent on the roster, coaching staff, and just positive momentum, there's not much that separates these 2 groups. I've never quite understood the saying, it's tough to beat a team 3 times, because if you kick their ass a couple of times already, you should have the advantage. But there has to be a lot of frustration on the Rams side, and both quarterbacks have a tendency of trusting themselves a little too much at times and giving the ball to the other team. One of them actually has the arm talent and creativeness to his game to make something happen. Shannon will mostly find ways to make Jimmy a game manager, but there will be a couple of key 3rd downs that I just trust Stafford more on. He's had his breakthrough moment and just played an excellent game at Tampa Bay. If this turns into a low-scoring affair where the Niners can put together some balanced drives and kick field goals, I think they'll win, but if Ellie allows Stafford to test the secondary, open things up in front of those safeties, and put the game in Garoppolo's hands more so, I'm going with the Rams defeating the Demons. So 26-24 Rams for me, as Matt Gay rectifies his key miss last week and bangs in the game winner. I think Niners plus 3.5 carries some value here because I could see this going either way. And the over-under is set a little bit low for two teams with excellent offensive play callers, but I just laid out how those two picks may not coincide with each other. I just know this should be another great iteration of this rivalry, and that's gonna do it. This ended up being longer than I expected, but I think the divisional round was so amazing, and we get two more really cool games to decide who will meet up in Super Bowl 56. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share it with a couple of friends who you think would also enjoy my analysis. The links to all my social media outlets are on the screen, as well as in the video description. I'll probably have another weekly video breakdown of something about these two games that we're about to watch, and plenty of other thoughts which I'll share there. In the meantime, have a great football weekend. Feel free to hit me up or leave a comment about the games, overtime rooms, or whatever you like. So, until then, see you later. Peace!